What's going on, everybody?
How's it
Welcome to
going?
Bird. Happy Monday, fellas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a rough one today. I did not want to get up and go anywhere.
Nah, not at all.
All right. Carrington, how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. Walking off the preseason loss.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it's only preseason. We got to get those jitters out while we can. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, Birds of Words brought to you by Old City Sports Network. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at Birds of the Word and Old City Sports. And also check us out on Twitter at Birds the Word 57. We also have all three of our Twitter handles underneath of our pictures here on the screen here, and you can also check us out on Old Sport, spelled OLDE. So obviously, boys, we suffered a loss in our first preseason game, but you know could be worse. But I think without further ado, I think we should probably get into some of the discussion and kind of what we thought about the game. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and get into cover two. All right. So first preseason game out of the gate against the Ravens. Suffered a loss, 20-19. Um, but it was definitely a game that I think we were all eager to see because we all knew we were going to see some of our newest, best, and brightest out there getting after it. But I'm kind of curious to get your guys' opinions on who you thought your MVP of the game was for the Eagles on Saturday night. I'm gonna go ahead and start with you, Matt. What you got, man?
Yeah, no, as we were talking last week about good old Greg Ward, just stepping right in with, I think he had, what, 5 catches? And just, guys is always open. Even though it's preseason, being third down, you got a big 9 yard pickup. I think what it was like 37. But,
Yeah,
yeah, guys was always open. He would have to be my MVP for this one, among some other ones, definitely later in the game, which I'll touch on here in a little bit.
yeah. No, I think I would have to agree with you. He was targeted 5 times, caught all 5 balls that were thrown to him, and yeah, I mean every time it seemed like anybody was even getting thrown to, and even in some of the passes where it wasn't thrown to him, the dude was open.
Yeah,
He was getting open every single play that he went out and ran his route. So I think he's starting to separate himself from the pack in regards to who's going to end up being that slot receiver, which is kind of one of the things I think we touched on in the pregame on Friday night. But he definitely showed it on the real stage in preseason. So yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think that's probably where I'm going as well. I think Greg Ward is definitely the guy.
yeah, absolutely.
Carrington, who'd you have, man? What you think?
Yeah, for me, I'll probably take the next lowest hanging fruit, which would be my man Sid Brown. I mean, he was absolutely killing it. I mean, to be fair, I could have just said anybody who isn't Ian Book, but
Yeah,
I'm just going to go ahead and take Sidney Brown because he displayed that motor, that athleticism. I mean, just that want to, can do, get to the ball every single time, knock people out in space. And some of those questions about coachability and size and instincts, I think he really went a long way to start answering those.
yeah.
Yeah, he definitely was impressive. Um, what he ended up finishing with what 9 tackles
Nine
on the day.
tackles.
Yeah, he was the lead tackler and when he played a quarter and a half.
Yep.
God,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
he was
remember watching
loaded.
one play where, they had like a wide receiver running back kind of stood up at the line and he just comes jetting in from the back and just pretty much picks the guy up and just drops him on the ground for everybody else. But he has no problem with being 5 foot, whatever he is, and sticking his nose in anybody's business.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think he definitely made a statement, and it definitely proved why he is definitely in the running for being the starting safety going into the year. You know, he didn't have any pass breakups or anything like that that I could recall. Um, I think, and then obviously, you know, um, one of the things that we were lacking, and I'm sure we'll touch on this a little later on in the show, but you know, we weren't exactly getting to the quarterback either. So you know, you can't really knock the guy for that, but none of the guys were getting to him. So just kind of the nature of the beast. But yeah, he definitely showed out. Is there any other guys that kind of stood out to y'all that really impressed and
I really
For
liked how
sure.
Tanner McKee looked. I thought he looked really comfortable in throwing from the pocket, and he was 10 of 20, but he threw some really on point passes. A deep one to Nado on the sideline that got called back for offensive pass interference, but
yeah,
it was just a back shoulder throw, and even without that PI call, it was a 100% catchable ball, and he put it right on the money.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
I think Tanner McKee really he wasn't my favorite pick. Obviously, I've made no secret about that, but it was less to do with overall talent, more just he hasn't shown a whole lot at the college level, and what he has shown doesn't seem to fit in our system. But a guy that can throw the football like that, stand in the pocket, really take hits. I mean, that's the system right there.
yeah, no, precisely. I think you guys kind of hit the nail on the head with Tanner. He looked very comfortable. Is sitting back there, and he once he once he made that first connection, I think it was with I think it was to Cleveland, if I remember correctly, who also
Hmm.
had the
It was another
impressive
one.
day for it being a guy that I had no idea who he was going into today. He wasn't even part of our topic of conversation. The last couple of times we've discussed the offense, so um, he was rather impressive as well, and I think him and Tanner and Cleveland were on a they were in sync with each other and definitely getting after it. So yeah, it was impressive to say the least. And then the as far as on the defensive side of the ball, you know, we'll discuss some of that here in the next segment because I think there was obviously there's some levels of concern I think that a lot of us have at this point. Um, but probably one of the biggest losses, and it sounds like it's going to be a season and an injury is Sean Bradley, who I think they said he tore his Achilles, completely blew it out.
Yep.
So I think that's definitely going to be a loss for this team in regards to um, the continuity, because I think he's been here he's one of the longest tenured linebackers that we have, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
it's his
Been
only
here
that,
for
first season, I believe.
he's our
yeah,
special teams ace as well. I mean, he played phenomenal last year on special teams.
yeah, in a special teams locker room that was pretty shitty. So yeah, to
Yeah,
have somebody who actually stood out, that's it says a lot, and yeah, I think it's definitely going to hurt us. But I think it kind of harkens back to what we were talking about on Friday, where um, and it's going to be key is the fact that we picked up some of these other linebackers that in free agency going into this week that I think are going to end up obviously proving to be utilized a little bit more sooner than probably most of us had anticipated. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think both those guys probably make this team now, just from that injury standpoint.
right,
Unless there's a late cap guy that gets cut during training camp that sometimes surprises us. But I think we're gonna be going forward with the guys that probably with five linebackers right now because unfortunately there's gonna be more injuries. I'm sure. Hopefully not season ending, but probably a game or two that somewhere throughout this season.
Carrington, what you got, bud? What's your
yeah. I
thoughts on
think
this?
sticking on offense too. I know linebacker depth is going to be a big one in our next segment as well. But like Swift, I mean, he really stood out. I mean, that's an obvious one, but I think we saw what he could do a lot more with less. He kind of came in and just absolutely, put his nose to the grindstone and showed some power. I mean, I knew he had the receiving ability. I was not aware he had the punch you in the mouth ability. and he really punched some dudes in the mouth. And it was nice to see him go out there and do that and add that element, so that when he's in, we're not just a telegraphed, one-dimensional receiving, play when he's in there.
Yeah, he made that cut, and I think those guys' ankles are still sitting on M&T Stadium's field somewhere, right by the line, and then just ran over somebody about 12 yards later and gained another 5-6 yards after that. So it was a nice 22-yard run that he had. But like you said, just it doesn't make him so one-dimensional when he's in there.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on that, and a lot of those guys look somewhat decent in regards to it, but obviously we'll touch on that here in a little bit when we get into the full breakdown of the offense and kind of what we saw from them. But I guess with that, I guess we probably shouldn't even delay it. Let's go ahead and get into the offense and kind of discuss what it is we saw on Saturday.
Trying to stop a 4th and 26 and in essence take over. Plenty of time. Down the middle is Mitchell. Where will they spot him? They're going to get forward progress and a first down.
So 4th and Seasons brought to you by Righteous Felon. Go to righteousfelon.com and use promo code OCSN for 15% off the best beef jerky around. Any orders that you make over $50 get you free shipping on that order. So definitely be sure to check them out. All right, so Tanner McKee, we kind of already touched on 10 for 20, threw for 148 yards, and finished with a QB rating of 74.6. Additionally, we had Marcus Mariota, who started the game. He came out 7 for 11, 58 yards, had a QB rating of 77.1. And then obviously last but not least was Ian Book, which I think none of us were too impressed by him, but 1 for 4, 11 yards, 39.6 QB rating, and actually ended up taking 2 sacks for losses of 21 yards in total. Well, I think the argument about who's going to be QB number 3 might have just went out the window. I think Ian Book is definitely going to be the odd man out at this point, because Tanner McKee came out and impressed, and he impressed all pretty significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was by and large the better quarterback of the day when it comes to the Eagles. Marcus Mariota could not seem to connect with the guys. He was making some overthrows. Granted, there were some times where some people were getting to him. He was definitely taking some lumps, but even when he wasn't, he just looked. He didn't look comfortable in the pocket. He looked more comfortable when he was on the run, and I think we saw some key plays, and we were talking about it on Saturday night, texting back and forth that he was making plays with his legs, but that was about the only place he was making plays.
Yep. Agree.
Yeah, he definitely missed a couple of open guys. I forget who was going across the middle that he missed. It probably been a 15, 16-yard gain, and he just overthrew him. It wasn't even close.
Right, and that's why I think I had texted y'all, and I was like, "Is he overthrowing them, or is the wide receiver running the wrong route?" Because it almost kind of looked like he was expecting him to be in a certain spot, and that guy was not there. However, with a clear sail over, and I think it was actually running towards the sidelines. He ended up overthrowing him. It definitely, that whole thing changed when Tanner McKee came in. He actually was hitting these guys in stride, and coming across the middle. And, the only passes that Mariota actually made that were decent were the 5 that he made to Greg Ward in that first quarter, and that's it.
And I think that talks a lot about continuity too, right? I mean, Mariota's probably throwing to Ward in practice every single day, and we have people like, Johnny King, Tyree Cleveland, people who have just got here maybe a week and a half ago. And so the continuity, the repetitions aren't there, but maybe for a guy like McKee, who was on the outside looking in, coming into even the preseason game, he's getting a lot more repetitions with those type of guys. But Mariota, they're not wasting a lot of time with him throwing to Johnny King. especially, any complex routes. And by the time some of the other offensive linemen were replaced with third stringers, I think it really showed, the drop off there too. So offensive line tackle looked like a kind of a concern for me on the backup side of it. I mean, I don't think we have a fourth guy, maybe even a third guy that really impressed me a lot.
No, I was curious at that too, whether if it was just running with the backups and he was just missing those guys, because, like you say, there's guys in his face immediately sometimes when he's back there, and it doesn't help matters at all. But when you're throwing to Kane and, like you said, King, who just signed days before this game, it's definitely not going to help your cause either. So I'm not too worried about Mariota. We've seen him play in true NFL games and start for many seasons, and he's been, serviceable quarterback. He's always been phenomenal running the ball.
Yeah, serviceable backup for sure. Yeah. And that's the I think the key with all this. Obviously, we all know Jalen Hurts can be a starter, but do you think a sustained performance by Tanner McKee through the rest of the preseason could potentially earn him leverage in that regard? You don't think he's ever going to be the number two?
You can play devil's advocate, and I will, just for sake of discussion. And let's say he goes out there and he's really putting on, highlight reel performances, and he's in maybe the upper 70-ish% tier of accuracy. Then maybe they look at him and go, all right, this is what we need, out of you. But I think that would be more if something were to happen with Jalen Hurts, where Mariota is going to come in and be the game manager, and they want McKee to sit back and just watch, learn, develop, read, listen. They don't want him to go in there and worry about the snap, because the NFL, as you gentlemen know, is a very fast-paced game. It's a high IQ game. And if he goes in there and starts putting the ball on the turf, or he's just worrying about the snap exchange, that's what you have Mariota for. You want somebody who's solid, who's nice, right? It's not the A+, but, he's a good B-, maybe C+, close out your game performer.
Then I think last year when they were missing Hurts for those 2 games, we had Minshew, and who came in and played fine, especially during that Dallas game. Other game, not so much. But if it was for an extended period of time, they would have to change the entire offense. And that's just scary, I think, to a coaching staff for a long period of time. So I think that's why Mariota is kind of penciled in as that number 2, because you really don't have to change it all that much. He still has the running ability of, maybe not on par where Hurts is at. He used to be, but, we've seen yesterday, he's able to gain, I think, 18 yards on one rush to get the first down with no problem.
Yeah, and Roseman said he didn't expect McKee to be available at all during the draft. So this guy wasn't in their plans. He was just a draft baller, and they are really big on being the quarterback factory, right? And so as they keep trying to crank people out or whatever, I think, it's smart to take a quarterback every other year probably. It seems excessive, but in the NFL, you could have a Matt Castle on your hands and all this, or a Jalen Hurts on your hands, and one of those people develop. And I think, the latter did okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with you guys there. And then, you kind of touched on the fact that he still has that maneuverability. He actually ended up having 4 carries for 29 yards. He actually averaged the second highest rushing yards on the team for the game. So it was actually rather impressive in that regard. So, so I guess we could probably get into the rushing side of things. We have a lot of guys that we wanted to see and see how they performed, and the one that actually particularly stands out is Rashad Penny. He looked pretty decent. Obviously, his injury history is a big question mark for all of us, and it's something that we've discussed in the past. But he definitely showed his ability, and I'm hoping that this is kind of a sign of things to come. But he wasn't used in the aspect that I was anticipating him being used. They were using him in a lot of open field situations and doing some north to south running. It had nothing to do with him trying to punch the ball into the end zone by any stretch of the imagination. So what's your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you critiqued it perfectly. I don't think situationally he was being used exactly as we thought he would be used. But as they got more and more and more into the ball game, and they get more offensive linemen, the starters back, I think that role is just going to fit him perfectly. I think it had more to do with the availability and running situations, as we saw, even with the 2-point conversion and other odd situations or odd plays that were called. That's not going to be his reality every single day. It's just that's going to be more of a Swift thing or a Gainwell thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it looked pretty good, especially considering who was blocking for him up front at that time as well. You know what I mean? There's some times where he didn't have anything to work with, and he ends up, falling forward for 3 yards. Where I think maybe, Boston Scott or Kenny Gainwell probably stopped at the line, if not behind it. So, and he showed really good patience. He followed the blockers on one run. I think he ended up gaining 9 or 10 yards off of that, but it looked like there was nothing, and he just kept just patient, and then just hit it. And he hasn't played since October of last year, coming off, I think he broke his leg. So I'm sure it's a little worrisome for him as well. Get in there and get that first contact going.
Well, and a lot of people went in on Sermon as having a really good or a breakout performance, right? But he had another carry than he did. He averaged 2.5, right? And then Penny averaged 3.8. And because of the touchdown, I think people are just very short-sighted when it comes to runs. And to your point, I mean, they didn't have any offensive linemen in there of substance pushing real power except Steen, who, by the way, to his credit, had a tremendous pancake block.
Yeah, he did. I thought Steen played pretty well from going from left tackle to right guard during the whole game. I know Lane Johnson had nothing but good things to say about him. Being a third-round pick and being very coachable and pretty much up to doing whatever Stoutland asks him to do. There's really no, I don't want to do that, or I'd rather play left tackle on the right guard. He's like, okay, wherever's going to get me to play where you guys need me is where I'll go play at. And I love that in a player. So I was kind of a big Driscoll fan as well. He kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
Just maybe not as good, but, wherever you needed him to play, he was more than willing to kind of step into.
Yep.
Yeah. It was definitely the offensive line. Steen was definitely the one that I was watching pretty closely throughout that whole majority of that game, and definitely trying to see his ability. I mean, there were a couple of plays in there where he might have missed the block, and I think the one was just a bad read on Marcus Mariota's part, where I think the linebacker had came in and Steen didn't pick up either of the blocks that he was either it was the edge rush and then he had the linebacker. That particular thing, had the quarterback made the appropriate read or maybe even the center, I think who was it, Cam it was playing had he made the appropriate read, because I saw the linebacker coming from a mile away. I was like, okay, this guy's coming. And then both of them got through because Steen couldn't pick up the block, which, it's unfortunate, but like I said, preseason, and obviously we'll deal with that and hopefully they can try and figure it out. But I actually wanted to go back to the running back because obviously none of the starters played, but a couple of folks were absent from the running back standpoint, and that was both Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. Neither of them played, and this kind of harkens back to what we've been talking about. Who do we think is going to be the starting running back? And I think I saw a news article that came out. I think it was either Sunday or Monday, or Sunday or today, basically saying that Kenny Gainwell might actually be the starting running back for the team. And I'm just kind of curious to get your guys' thoughts on whether or not you think that's the case, or whether or not this was just a penciled-in rest day for him and Boston Scott.
Well, I know Boston Scott was dealing with just like a knick-knack injury, right? Like something with his ankle or something like that, and he was held out precautionary. And I think Kenneth Gainwell was healthy, and that's a little bit of a shocker to me. I mean, seeing Swift play. If I were Gainwell, I would want to be out there getting some repetitions, unless they just know something we absolutely don't, because Swift looks like the part. I mean, he looks like the whole ball of wax for me. Penny will be a nice compliment, and everything after that's gravy. Unless we play the Giants, then we know who's starting.
Right. Mighty Mouse is starting. No, figured from last year, Sirianni loves Gainwell. He loves his versatility. He got a ton of touches, even with how great Miles Sanders was playing, for 95% of the year. He was still getting his touches. And, it was Gainwell getting touches instead of Boston Scott. mostly during that Giants blowout. And he ran. He ended up with 100 yards rushing. So it wouldn't surprise me if they tabbed him the starter at the beginning of the game. But with that being said, I still think Swift probably ends up with more touches than Gainwell does.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was the one. He definitely impressed. He only had 2 carries on Saturday, so he wasn't utilized. But obviously, the 1 carry we did see, like you said, the dude's ankles are still on the ground at the M&T Bank. So uh, it's I guess you kind of just have to chalk this up to preseason and hope that we get to see a little bit more from these guys as the preseason continues to wear on. We're already getting ready to approach our next game on Thursday, so it's one of them things that we're going to see. We'll see who they end up rolling out this one. If it's going to be, we're going to see Kenny Gainwell this time around, but it was definitely interesting to have the other guys there and him not. And then Trey Sermon was utilized. I think we saw him back on a kick return at one point. But he actually had 9 carries, only for 21 yards, but he did have the sole touchdown from the running back core on that game. What's your guys' thoughts on Trey?
He's all right. He had some good return duties, and it's just going to be hard for me to see the Eagles keeping, especially with the Bradley injury, 5 running backs when you're looking at, who you're going to bring in by committee, and you're not going to replace an injured player with somebody off the street as good as he is. So it's going to be tough to see keeping 5 running backs, but he certainly made a case. He had a good showing. He wasn't awful.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And it goes back to, with his 9 carries, with averaging, 2.5 yards a carry?
2.3.
2.3, yeah.
Yep.
Also, third string guys, blocking form guys fighting for a practice squad spot, maybe. But,
exactly.
But, the touchdown, I don't look at it as that big of a deal because it was a 1-yard punch in after, a good old Cleveland back shoulder catch. But, I think he's just going to be the odd man out. Yep. There's just no room for him.
Yeah.
Like you said, Carrington, especially with Bradley going down, it wouldn't surprise me if they brought in another linebacker at this point to keep 5 of them, 5 or 6. It's just such a thin position.
And also looking at Bradley going down in what role he plays here, we're talking about special teams and McPherson being kind of a fringe guy. His role was outside corner, not slot corner. So now he's being forced to adapt because of the emergence of guys like Keely Ringo and stuff. And I know we'll get into that. But he also is a key special teams guy, just as Bradley was. So that might kind of change the numbers as that goes as well.
Yeah, there's another name that they just cut that I wonder if they would bring back, in Davion Taylor for a special team spot maybe. I know he's kind of like a freak athlete type guy. Yeah. Never really got on the field, but you'd always see him flying around. So I don't know if he might be a fit for a special team spot with being able to use his speed and kind of fly around the field a little bit.
Yeah, he's a guy like Keely Ringo that didn't play football until but maybe 2 or 3 years of his entire life, including college, and then got to the Eagles.
I think he started his senior year of high school. I think he finally got his mom to agree to let him play.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Freak athlete.
Yeah, potentially gonna make. Yeah. All right, so let's get into the receivers. We kind of already touched on Greg Ward. He's big. I think he was both me and Matt's pick for MVP for the game. 5 receptions, 53 yards, with a long of 17. He was targeted 5 times, caught all 5 passes that he had thrown to him. And we kind of highlighted already the fact that this dude's just getting open. Now, granted, these are potential second string cornerbacks that he's getting open against. But he did look impressive. He was catching some balls across the middle, which I think is something that we've lacked in the past. Having the ability to be able to catch the ball across the middle, and I think it would actually be key for Jalen Hurts to be able to have that ability to be able to dump the ball off across the middle, especially going into the season. If we're focusing on trying to keep him away from running the ball. So I think that's going to be a key aspect. So as long as Greg Ward keeps doing what he did Saturday night, it's hard to argue that he would not be the slot receiver, wide receiver 3 for the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of akin to an NBA team or a contending team going out and getting a sharpshooter that might be like a JJ Redick past their prime in athleticism, maybe. And I don't think Ward's past his prime in athleticism, but he's just been around so long. He's a safety valve. He's kind of reached his pinnacle. He's reached his peak, but he is just nice and steady, kind of a good guy that he's shown he can absorb hits and he returns kicks. So it kind of fits the profile of what the Eagles are looking for versatility.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if he's penciled himself in as a third wide receiver. I still think they like Quez, and they're going to give Quez his shot just on sheer speed wise. But definitely, that fourth, fifth receiver spot, I don't think he's going to be on the practice squad all year. I think he's going to be on the Eagles roster, 53-man roster, the entire season. And if he's not, somebody else is 100% going to grab him. I don't know how they didn't last year for the longest time, especially with how slot receivers go down, and how crucial they can be. But I think it's do or die for the Eagles this year with Greg Ward being on the 53-man roster.
Fair enough. Another guy that really impressed that like I said, I didn't know his name before Saturday, and that was Cleveland. 5 receptions, 68 yards receiving. He was targeted 10 times, caught 5 of them, and his longest catch of the day was 27 yards. I just he did all right for considering the nature of him and McKee seemed to be in sync with each other, and they were basically out there. It looked like they were having a game of catch out there at one point. He was doing a pretty good job at catching it, and I don't know what your guys' thoughts on Cleveland. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be one of the guys that makes the 53-man. I think he's going to be one of the odd men out.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Karen.
No, well said. I was just going to say, echo your sentiments. He kind of had some dumb plays too that he had. He could tell he's just playing a little bit free range as you are if you're, just started playing with the Eagles about 8 or 9 days ago. So he's just kind of out there making plays do. I don't think he had a bad game by any means, but yeah, I think you said it perfect. He's destined for the practice squad.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think he played under Brian Johnson when he was in Florida, I think at some point, or he's very familiar with his system. So I think that was definitely a comfortability of having him around, and probably why he's here is just because he has that relationship with Brian Johnson. Now the OC taking over for Steichen.
Yeah. And then we had some. So it looks like he was in Denver previously. Yeah, he was in Denver previously, and was basically on a return. He was a return guy. He was playing on the kick return team. So, yeah. And then there were some other guys, onesie twosies that had to catch here, catch there. The one thing that was kind of lacking that I saw was they didn't really dump the ball off to the running back as frequently as I was anticipating that potentially happening. Now that could speak to the fact that the wide receivers were getting open and there was no need for them to dump it off to the running back. However, there were some times in there where I was like, why didn't he get it out to that guy? And that could just be the quarterback's fault in some of these aspects. But yeah, definitely they were lacking on that end. It looks like each running back had caught the ball once. Trey and then Rashad Penny. Swift didn't have anything out of the backfield, which we thought that was going to be his bread and butter and things that he was going to get utilized for, and it didn't happen this game. But still early in the preseason, I think we'll see a little bit more of it. But
yeah,
definitely interesting to see the way that dynamic shifted.
Yeah, I agree. I think it says a lot about the offensive line rotation too. It's an underrated play as far as difficulty, getting out there, blocking for screens, doing the halfback, getting those guys out there in space. It's underrated. Very easy to get procedure penalties, very, very easy to jump off the line. So I think it has a lot to do with the personnel that are out there, and less to say about Swift, who came in and mauled, got a couple people over, and then they were like, all right, you're probably done, probably till week 3.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you kind of touched on something that we were going to talk about anyway. Some of those procedure penalties that we were texting each other about how frustrated we were with the fact that I think we had 2 delay game penalties and
Yeah, third and 1.
Yeah.
Backed us up to 3rd and 11.
Yeah. So it's that I mean, get the bullshit out now. That is kind of where I'm at with it. I prefer them to take them losses now, but hopefully this isn't back to the same old bullshit.
No,
that we were.
I could see
dealing with.
Sirianni chewing the inside of his lip, trying not to freak out on the sideline because he was just absolutely losing it, going from 3rd and 1, and obviously an obvious 2-down territory for the Eagles because we know what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
To go into to 3rd and 11, it's inexcusable. Even as a 2nd or 3rd stringer, you know how much time is on the clock. You got to get the guys out there. You got to get them ready. So. Yeah, he was definitely losing his mind, and he handled it a lot better on the sideline than I thought he was going to. During the regular season, probably not so much.
I mean, if I had any hair, I would have pulled it out, but
Yeah.
those are inexcusable things. And when you see offensive linemen having procedure issues, that's the difference. I think, there's like 17 offensive linemen, 17 or 18 on the team right now, and you can't have that if you're trying to make the cut, if you're trying to close that slim margin.
That's the one circle you don't want around your name for penalties going down, because I saw, they were just on there just circling names and circling numbers after every single call was going. I was like, oh, not good for him. Not good for him.
Yeah.
See it back on the farm.
Yeah, Stalin was not happy.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't. Okay, so let's see here. Is there anybody else on the offensive side of the ball that you guys wanted to kind of discuss or go over that we probably haven't covered already?
I would just say I had kind of higher expectations than maybe he showed, and I made the very corny joke that he's not gonna make the team, and I really think that he will not. And he is definitely a practice squad candidate, where I really thought, based off of everything that was coming out of reports, that he was making that push for a possible 6 spot, depending who the personnel that was left over from cuts were. And he really just was all over the place in all the wrong ways. His name was probably circled out of existence.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had a very high hopes with Nada, as we touched on last week or on Friday. And, he had a nice back shoulder catch, but he pushed off the corner, and when he didn't have to at all. That ball was being caught regardless. And, wiped out a 20-some yard dime pass from McKee at that point. And, just huge drive killers. And like you said, he's definitely going to be a practice squad guy unless he comes out Thursday or next week and just blows it up, or Sega Whiteside style, for 125 yards in a preseason game. But no, I agree. I think he's definitely going to be a practice squad guy now at this point, from the way that it was looking.
Yep. Yeah, it's he had 1 catch for 4 yards.
Yeah.
That's you're not doing yourself any favors by any stretch of the imagination. All right, well, I think that'll wrap it up for the offensive side of the ball. Why don't we go ahead and get to the defensive side of the ball? All right, Nickels and Dimes is brought to you by Outlaw Mile High Beer. Check it out at Tivoli Brewing Company in Colorado. Pick up a case near you. I know there's a bunch of them. They were selling cases in Delco quite a bit, and if you are interested in getting it, you can also pick it up online. I actually just ran out, so I got to resupply myself. I kind of slipped into a depression on Saturday after I drank the last of it. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. All right, so we kind of touched on Sidney Brown already on the defensive side of the ball. Was there any other guys that kind of stuck out to you in regards to the defensive side?
Yeah,
What you got,
Morrow, baby.
Morrow?
Morrow, Ojimo, man, we kind of, our first show, we were talking about him. We talked about his strength and his ability to create pressure and gaps and stuff. And boy, he did not disappoint. He just absolutely came to play, took advantage of everything. I saw one play where he threw either the center or the guard absolutely directly backwards. And then the very next play, he did it again. And the guy had to know it was coming, had to know that bull rush move was coming. And the knock on him was that was his main thing, was just out strengthening people. But for me, seeing him go out there and just make some impact, I mean, that looks like one of the best value 6th, 7th rounders of Sensa Mulata. He has a great frame and a great chance to make the team on a deep Eagles team. Very deep. He has, especially defensive line of all places.
Yeah,
He has
exactly.
a chance to go in there and be a rotation guy, potentially just get limited snaps even, but really make the team.
No, I completely agree. I was very impressed with him. Like you said, just his sheer power surprised me. Like I knew it was there because they talked about it all throughout camp, and that was his thing coming out of college. But like you said, showing it at this level, just moving adult men out of the way and just getting pressure on them when they knew it was coming was very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Carrington and I, the first show we did, I kind of wrote this dude off and really wasn't anticipating anything from him. So the fact that he proved me wrong, and is proving probably some of the other naysayers wrong. It was definitely impressive, and he definitely showed some ability that I didn't know that was going to necessarily transfer well. But yeah, he definitely was one of the more impressive of the day. Um, Another one that I think we were all eager to see, and he did not disappoint fresh out of the gate, and that was Jalen Carter. This dude is a freak of fucking nature.
No,
I just
Yeah.
wow.
I was hoping I would get something from him, but I wasn't expecting him to one hand throw an ex teammate of his out of the way and then chase down a very mobile quarterback at the same time, and get some pressure on him, make him make a very bad throw. And if he can do that throughout a game, it's going to be an absolute nightmare for offensive lines because they're going to be dog tired from run blocking and pass blocking, and we're just going to keep rotating in defensive lineman after defensive lineman. And here comes a Fletcher Cox or old Milton coming in, and you got these guys with fresh legs, and they're just going to be throwing bodies just out of the way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he wasn't credited with any tackles or anything on the day. He did have that one interruption. He was credited with a QB hit, which I'll take that. Get to the quarterback and knock him on his ass a few times. It sends a message. It's definitely going to be impressive to see him next to some of these other key players and how they're going to ebb and flow off of each other going forward into the season. I think that's going to be key in this whole Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and the Fletcher Cox and all that situation. It's going to be a big stepping stone for these guys in regards to allowing them to get to the quarterback because who do you double team in this regard? And that's I think where the question marks are obviously going to be, but. The hope would be you double team one guy. That means that the other guy is going to be able to get to the quarterback that much easier. So I'm expecting this team to have a shit ton of sacks this year. And I think it's something that the only thing that's going to impact it is that second level, which is something that I think we've all been eager to talk about, and that's. And we did, and we were texting each other back and forth about this on Saturday. Regardless of how many people we added in the offseason, the linebacker depth is not great. We were still having trouble in that second level. These guys were if the running back made it to that point, they were very easily getting to the third level without even batting an eye. So that portion is a little bit concerning. What's your guys' thoughts on this linebacker depth that
I mean,
no longer have?
I mean, what depth would be my answer to that? Is that
Right.
bringing in guys off the streets that nobody had absolutely any intention of signing, and Zach Cunningham and Miles Jack, they're good depth signings, but counting on those guys is not a plan. Now, when you get into a season and Jordan Davis gets injured and your run defense suffers, and then you go out and get Linval, Joseph, and Sue, that makes sense, right? That's a reactionary signing, but it is definitely concerning to me to see those guys as our primary options. And we haven't seen Dean in action. Obviously, he's practicing, but isn't playing. And he's the blue dot, right? So he's the guy, or the green dot in this case, but who's supposed to go out there and just really call the plays and kind of keep control of everything. But when I saw all the nickel formations, that made it really clear to me they don't believe in the linebackers either, especially when you're being gashed for runs and you're going on a base nickel play after play after play after play. They don't have confidence either. You can have all the great defensive linemen you want. You can generate the push, but you have to have backers to be able to shoot the gaps, read and react, or all the push in the world doesn't really do you a lot of good.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's definitely scary. You're like you said, the depth signings of Cunningham and Jack were supposed to be just that, just depth signings, and now you're going to be like they're going to be seeing a lot of playing time. I feel
because of Bradley going down.
Yeah.
Yep.
I could also see Howie making a trade if this doesn't work out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I can see him, making a trade for another linebacker at this point, just somebody opposite of Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, no, I believe was Nakobe Dean a healthy scratch, or did I see something about him having a stinger that he was dealing with as well?
He's back to practice, but they held him out because he's the starter, and there was no use, when he was not up to game speed yet.
Right. So as far as the cornerbacks go, did any of these guys impress you? Greedy Williams, Goodrich, any of those guys? What you guys
Eli
think?
Ricks.
Eli
Ricks. Yeah.
Even without the pick six, I thought he had a phenomenal game. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He goes to LSU. He's playing opposite of a first round draft pick, and then he transfers to Alabama because there's supposedly some sort of coachability issues and attitude issues. But I guess he went to Alabama and sat behind with on that team, a couple corners there, and he goes undrafted. And they said he's just been coming in with his head down, nose in the books, and playing hard. I think he realizes what he did to himself, because he was probably going to be a top 60 pick probably in the NFL with the way corners go. And he showed it. He locked guys down. He had a couple pass deflections coming out, and he had a huge pick six. And he definitely, I love his attitude coming with it. He comes to play and he chirps and he chaps, but he backed it up. Not like Jalen Mills running back there flexing on a pass that was 30 yards overthrown.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. He definitely looked impressive.
And I thought too, with Eli Ricks, of course, he's dealing with dropping far in the draft. He's dealing with transferring, thinking he's going to be the guy at Alabama. Is not the guy at Alabama as much. Like you said, top 60, almost certainly, right? But you could also see the Deshaun Jackson in him, the spirited talk, the chippiness. That's a really nice PC way to say it. And where that could get a little out of hand. And that's just kind of something I'm watching in him, and that it's good to have fire. It's good to have, obviously I'm a big Sue fan, and he had to learn how to sort of contain that fire, contain that passion, and apply it to the game and not cost his team penalties. Because all the pass deflections in the world, all the athleticism and instincts, they don't mean shit, frankly, if he can't control himself. You can tell he plays wild but in control. But after the play, the things that people were talking about in the draft, as you alluded to, there's some stuff. He's got some stuff, and I'm not saying he's got baggage, but he's definitely got some check luggage.
like you said, I mean, we already have one guy that costs us in penalties after plays, number 96. So we don't need another one coming in, on a crucial third down of a big pass breakup and just, taunting somebody, just standing over him for a brief second. You know what I mean? It's just, these guys they're so quick to throw flags on taunting penalties now.
Yeah, and you
after
never know
plays.
what official you're going to get.
Exactly.
I think, too, on the other side of the flip side of it, that Keely Ringo had some plays go 50-50 with him. But the makeup, so actually my wife pointed this out to me, and I was just looking away half a second, I swear. And she goes, look at the speed. Like, he got beat, but he really got back to the guy and made the play, made the tackle, and was quick to call himself out, quiet, humble, limited knowledge base for him. But, man, his ceiling is just anywhere he wants it to be. Free safety, corner, whatever he wants to do is fine by me. Like I said, he'd be like Sidney Brown would be the star corner, and then drop Keely maybe even as a safety eventually. But goodness gracious, Greedy Williams, he sucks.
Yeah.
Williams did not impress me at all. And then, I mean, Goodrich, he was a hit or miss kind of guy too. There were a couple bonehead plays that he had made, and really shitty coverage, in some aspects. But, Eli Ricks was definitely one of the guys that, and this stat kind of sucks, and I hate the way that the NFL even talks about it, because pass deflections are all well and good, and you can use it as a statistic. However, I'm kind of curious to, in regards to the coverage, if this guy's covering down so well, the quarterback's not going to throw to the guy if he's actually in coverage and preventing the ball from even being thrown. So to record pass deflections and be that as kind of your gauging factor for cornerbacks is a misconception, because the key thing is how well are they doing coverage for the duration of it, and that's one of the things that you can't really highlight unless you're actually watching the game and make note of it. And that was the one thing that he really impressed with. He was all over these guys.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I forget what play it was. I just remember Keely Ringo just chasing him down from behind. And I'm like, where did he come from on the screen? He came out of nowhere, backtracked on everything and ended up, pretty much a touchdown saving play.
But that's what I was referring to, that makeup speed. That was the play where I was like,
how did he catch up to you already? His speed is insane. It is. And I think from yesterday's game, and if he stays the same or even remotely close, I think Eli Ricks makes his team. He could definitely start pushing a McPherson for a spot if he can actually play corner instead of just special teams.
Yeah, if he maintains, there's no way Eli makes that out of the building.
No.
And nor should he. And I'm telling you, absolutely, there's no way I would let him go, because McPherson, yes, he plays special teams. He's established his outside experience. But once we added Keely Ringo, now you have a bit of a logjam on your hands. And then if you're thinking about Josh Joden going, oh, we're going to keep him too, well, now you're looking at 7 corners.
Yeah.
And while 6 could be a push, I think if they continue a nickel format, I think 6 is practically a lock, because you got to have these guys to be able to interchange, especially, with Sidney Brown showing out. I really think that he could be the starter.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree.
So the one thing that I actually kind of wanted to point out, defense as a whole, we only have 1 sack on Saturday, in comparison to the Ravens having 4. Now, this might not necessarily be an alarming thing, because it is preseason, and you had a lot of guys rotating in and out and doing a bunch of different things. Do you guys have some level of concern in regards to the ability for some of these guys to be able to get to the quarterback and get those sacks, or are you guys just chalking it up as a?
No, especially against the quarterbacks that played. They had 3 very mobile quarterbacks playing, and Josh Johnson has been in the league for 476 years and played for 94 teams. So, He's just like, but he's still an athletic quarterback. And then Huntley started half the year last year, and we know that he can play already. And then he's playing against second and third string guys.
That was weird.
Yeah, my wife's like, how do they win 24 games in a row? It's like because they have Tyree Huntley playing against third string players, and he started and played well against starting NFL players. You know what I mean? It's just, but they just did a good job of getting the ball out. I would almost credit Carter with a sack because Johnson just wobbly threw that ball into the middle of nowhere.
Well, and the thing that stood out to me on that Carter play wasn't that he didn't get the sack. It wasn't even the burst off the line. It was as soon as he shed his guy, he immediately checked the inside running back.
Yep.
He had that play locked up. And if he doesn't go for that running back, he gets the sack. But if you look at it as a whole, I mean, it gives me goosebumps because those are next level instincts from a rookie, from a guy who's had a lot of time off, dealt with a lot of different stuff, could easily be distracted. And he comes in and he checks to the back. He has him covered and still gets to the quarterback. And anytime you're rushing a quarterback like that and he's having to dish the ball out of there, it's damn near as good as a sack. And you look at the other stats across the board, right? Like we had 5 tackles for loss, 6 deflections. Like those are all really high level numbers from a defense. And the sacks will come, but how do you combat a good pass rush, right? Like we all know the answer. You just get like check downs, quick slants, 3-step drops. You got to get rid of the ball sooner than possible. They know what our strength is. And it was clear what the weakness was, as we talked about, was that second level. And so we have to get somebody in there that can keep them honest. Because right now, there is nobody, although Cunningham showed out today in practice versus the Browns, there's nobody right now making plays on the second.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be one of them things. And the one thing that, and we kind of highlighted it when we talked on Saturday, the defensive ends are not going in there and setting the edge to drive these running backs into the middle of the line for the linebackers to even be able to make a play. It is another thing that, and I can almost guarantee you that Desai already addressed this, the lack of ability for these guys to actually, make that push and set the edge the way that they're supposed to help prevent some of those outside runs that we saw against the defense. These guys were able to get to the outside and break some pretty significant yardage. And I mean, they were even doing it going into the middle too, even when the edge was getting set. I think it's going to come with repetition, and I think it's something that they'll eventually, and obviously we have to take into account that a lot of these guys are not going to be the starters. Fletcher Cox and these guys are going to all be in probably. I don't know if they'll play against the Browns on Thursday, but we'll see. But hopefully that's something that the defensive coordinator addresses and brings into the film thing, because it was definitely a level of concern for me at one point in time as well. So, we'll see. It's growing pains of the preseason. These guys are trying to gel with each other, and a lot of these guys probably haven't even taken reps with each other prior to going into the game in some aspects. So,
yeah, no, definitely. And to touch on Carter again, real quick, not to beat a dead horse, but his quickness that he showed on that it's not a sack, but quarterback hit. He made one small move with his shoulders and then literally threw his old Georgia teammate out of the way with one hand and was beelining to Josh Johnson at his size. And he was back there quick. And like you said, Kerry, did while checking the running back as well to make sure he wasn't getting it is absolutely insane, especially for a rookie where normally rookies are just like, just give me a sack. I don't care about the running back. I just want to get a sack, record it on a stat sheet. It'll look good for my placement here. But just how quickly he got from A to B was absolutely crazy.
And startling too to see like Nolan Smith against this 6'8", 380-pound offensive lineman, that guy out of Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I think it's like Falele or something, and Danielle something. And he gets up there and he looks like a hyper hamster, and he just goes right next to him. Done. Yep. That's it. I mean, he just one step gone. around the corner, and that guy's got 6 inches and 165 pounds on him, and he just drops them.
I just get excited for somebody like Smith, because he's only going to get better going against guys like Mailata and Johnson every day in practice.
Right.
And Nolan Smith was the first one to say, he's like, I haven't beaten Lane Johnson, but right as soon as he does, he tells me, hey, when I do this, you need to do this to combat that style. He's like, it's pretty much telling me like on how to beat him in himself. He's like, you can't teach that with other coaching, but from these all-pro offensive linemen just telling you, hey, you need to be able to do A, B, and C. And it's like, okay, next play, tries it, beats him, or gets a pressure, or does, something in practice to make a play.
Right.
Very promising.
Yeah, I was impressed with especially the front four and the folks that they had rotating in. Those were by far the most impressive in some of these aspects. Obviously, they didn't get as many sacks as obviously we would have liked, but it is what it is. But they definitely, at least in that first quarter, a lot of those guys impressed to a big degree. And then we've obviously already touched on the cornerbacks and some of the impressive work we saw out of those guys. So,
Jordan Davis, I think, did pretty well. Jordan Davis had a good game of just clogging up the middle, even though he didn't play that much after that. But he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the first time I've actually seen him. Like I've seen videos and somewhat, but he looks super lean out there.
That's a massive human being standing next to all the other defensive linemen. He towers over everybody.
Yeah, huge. But yeah, I mean, he didn't have very much contribution, but it's I think he played one series or maybe two, and that was it. So it is what it is.
But he was taking on the double teams, and they were not moving him, which I love to see, because that's pretty much what you just want to stand them up and keep both your guys there, so you have your Josh Sweats and Brandon Graham's going one-on-one against these guys, and I'll take that 10 out of 10 times all day.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not like Graham had a terrible year, obviously, or Josh Sweat, and those guys almost feel like afterthoughts, which is not necessarily for diehard fans, but all the coverage on everybody else, it's been absurd and great. And it's clear that Jalen Carter is going to be great for, the next 8 to 10 years, however long that he maybe wants to be great. His motor and drive is just incredible. Davis looking lean, and, the announcers in midseason form.
Yeah. Not knowing anybody from anybody.
I remember there's like Deion Kane with the interception, and we're like, sure about that's why?
Yeah, no,
I don't think that's the case.
They were brutal. Yeah. They were brutal.
That was them announcers were fucking horrible, man.
And for being with the Eagles network, like, that's your job to know these guys, and they had no clue.
I mean, I can't say a guy's name from Minnesota on the Ravens who's like the 5th overall tackle or whatever. I can't say that dude's name. But, we may never see him again, but they're getting defense wrong, offense wrong, corners wrong, safeties wrong, getting everything switched off. And if I had to hear Kerryon Johnson one more time, I was going to lose it.
So you actually had the Eagles announcers on your end. I think me and Karen had to watch it on NFL Network, and we were dealing with the Ravens. The Ravens?
Yeah, the Ravens.
Yeah, dude, it was a fucking disaster.
It was rough with the Eagles guys going. It was like listening to paint dry. I'm like, thank you that you don't do this on a weekly during the regular season, because you got to take my shoelaces out of all my shoes every game.
Oh my God. I really couldn't believe it. I've truly never, I thought I was being punked or something, or what, skunked or dunked or whatever the new thing is. Like, I literally could not believe it. I'm sitting here listening, and my wife's, watching and kind of passively looking. She goes, are they serious? She's like, I know these people. I know that's not right. She goes, no, that's not him. And I'm saying, well, no, it's not. It's just,
imagine getting paid to do this.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
This guy's got to pay for my therapy.
Right.
We went off on a little tangent there on the announcers, but I think we can go ahead and get into hit them high and hit them low and kind of discuss where some of us shook out on these over-unders and obviously what we're going to be anticipating for Thursday for the over-under getting ready to come up. So with that, we'll go into hit them high, hit them low.
Oh, hit 'em high, hit 'em low is brought to you by Delta 8 Gummies by Diet Smoke. These things are fire, people. So definitely use our promo code. Go to Delta Smoke, get these gummies, make your life that much better. Am I right?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Goes.
I agree.
So similar over under this week, by the way.
Yeah, you had sent me that earlier. I was kind of surprised. So we're looking at what, 4? It was
Yep.
+4.
-4 Philly, +4 Cleveland, kind of the exact same odds as last week. Like I said, they don't do a lot of prop bets and a lot of different things for preseason games because of the unpredictability of what you're looking at. But exactly the same odds as last week almost. And I thought that was very strange.
Copy and paste.
Yeah, somebody's on vacation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously we if anybody is crazy enough to bet on preseason football, obviously they did not cover the spread for the Eagles Ravens game because I believe that was 4 and the Ravens only beat us by 1. So hopefully you
I can't believe I bet that Jalen Hurts 4 touchdown passes last game. Just barely missed it.
Sorry about just a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, you're telling me there's a chance.
Tell me there's a chance.
Yeah.
I also saw Hurts' current odds for MVP are at plus 1,100, which I thought that was interesting because they have him behind Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Herbert, and Prescott. Prescott of all people is at plus 1,600. I mean, the disrespect is real. So if you're trying to make a bet on Jalen Hurts to win MVP, now is the time. Sitting at plus 1,100, I mean, that's going to be better than everybody but Dak Prescott, which, he's usually used to being at the bottom of most lists. So
yeah, and I think once the season starts and after game 1, you probably won't see that plus 1,100 again. It'll probably lower itself about a plus 9, and I think everybody else will lower itself a little bit, especially Mahomes and Burrow. I think those are the 2 only other players for MVP that I would kind of see giving Hurts a run for his money. Justin Herbert, great numbers. Like the guy's quarterback. It just the defense doesn't let them win many games, and they will not give it to a player that team goes 9-8. I don't care how well they play. It's not going to happen.
No, and that's what I don't understand is how does Herbert have the same odds as Jalen Hurts? And they could be a breakout team, but given the division they play in and the AFC as a whole, like Ravens are as talented as most teams, and they're going to be like 4th or 5th favorites in the AFC to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
And,
I think when we talked about last week, I think they were 5th. I mean, you obviously you got the Chiefs, the Bills, are ahead of them, and I think even the Chargers were penciled in ahead of them. And
Bengals. Now you got the Jets with signing Dalvin Cook. Cook's signing with the Jets tonight. So,
and Zeke Elliott signing with the Patriots. So we play Week 1.
Yeah, with the Patriots.
So a nice chance to beat the Cowboys 3 times in one season.
Yeah, right.
That one I'm not concerned about.
No,
Zeke is
I'm not concerned about Dalvin Cook.
No.
Well, Dalvin Cook,
it's a coin flip on whether he's going to be playing or not. So I think that's why Minnesota kind of cut their losses and sticking with Madison, who gave them pretty good numbers when he played in Dalvin Cook's spot.
Yeah, no, he definitely is not a schlub by any stretch of the imagination.
So where do you guys see this week the Eagles doing? Like, do you think they're going to come out and score more touchdowns, or do you think it's going to be kind of more of the same as last week?
I mean, my obviously my hope is that they come out and have more touchdowns, and I'm hoping that maybe we get to see some of the guys that we weren't able to see this week. But let's put it this way: Jake Elliott's getting his practice reps in if he ever needed them. And not that it was ever a level of concern, but Jake Elliott definitely.
Aaron Siposs there,
Yeah,
especially in the second half.
Our special teams are kind of a huge weakness, I think, that we're not talking about a lot too. And Alice is betting, and so we're kind of veering to the side a little bit. But looking at the point spread, adding those cheap kicks and everything else, Elliott looked a little shaky. Our punters are damn awful; they're just terrible. And we just lost our special teams leader on the return area, so it's just really tough to look at that and go, good old Kerryon Johnson played about 70% of the snaps on special teams, so maybe he'll be the next natural guy to kind of fill that void.
I agree, definitely.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I believe, Carrington, what I saw on your thing was that the over under on that was what, 37.5?
Yep.
Is that correct?
That's correct. And I just think they're going to be able to they're going to be able to eclipse that unless they play the starters a little bit longer. That's more like week 3, week 4 vibes for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, now they only do 3 weeks, with the preseason, which I keep forgetting. They don't have 4 games anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which keeps I was looking earlier. I was like, "Where's the 4th game posted for the Eagles?" It was like throwing me off.
Right.
It's been 34 years of my life that they played 4 games, and
clearly hasn't affected me at all.
But I think the Eagles cover that 4 points, even if the backups play the entire game. I think Mariota plays more. I think the starters will play one drive.
Okay.
I really do. Or I think Hurts will at least be in there for one drive. I don't know if all the starters are going to be in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know a couple of them they got, I think somebody Kelsey got knocked down today with an ankle injury, but then he ended up walking off and walked back and gave an interview, said that he's fine. And they Dickerson too. And they said Josh Sweat was down on one knee, but they said he was just dizzy from the heat.
This week, correct? So it's actually it's head-to-head practices.
Yeah, he said Kelsey got tied up in the middle of a pile and kind of came out limping a little bit, but he said he's absolutely fine. And they said Josh Sweat was just dizzy, just with it being so hot and playing and doing everything else. So said nothing to worry about, especially with Landon Dickerson, which was a big scary one.
Yeah, enough to make your butthole pucker.
Yeah,
you don't want that. You don't want that guy to go down. That's a loss you don't want.
No.
Nothing worse than getting that news notification pop up on your phone and it's like such and such was carted off, and you can just see, but they've cut off the top of the name, and you're just scrolling to make sure it's not your team.
It's like, what? Yeah, as soon as I see Philadelphia, I'm like, who? And as soon as I see somebody else, I'm like, I'll look at it later.
Yeah, and I saw in joint practices that Hurts threw a pick to Denzel Ward today.
Okay.
Oh no.
I know. Stop the presses. But he followed that up with a 40 to 50 yard touchdown over the top. So,
yeah, no, I just keep reading that his accuracy on out routes has been phenomenal. They said, and it's been awesome coverage with Slay and Bradbury, and he's just either putting it's going to be out of bounds or it's receivers ball only. I was like, well, that's good because there were a couple of throws last year where he got away with either batted down passes by receivers on out routes, just being thrown behind a little bit, but it seems like he's been nothing but just trying to hammer these out routes out, which is very good to hear.
Yep.
Yeah, I think what were the odds on his touchdown totals this year?
I have to go back and look.
Yeah, I have to go back and look, but yeah, I mean if his accuracy is as improved as we're hearing, I'd be I'd be remiss in not thinking about potentially putting some bets on Jalen Hurts going over on that touchdown total, the touchdown pass total, without question.
Was that like 33 or something? We were thinking he was going to get this year, as we were talking in projections, thinking 33, and I think they had him at like 27, 28 3 weeks ago. And then 2 weeks ago, it went up 1, but then they raised the yardage total that they thought he was going to get the yardage threshold. Yet they didn't raise the MVP odds. He's going to have more touchdowns and about 400 more yards, but his MVP odds are the exact same.
Yeah, his touchdowns were over under 22.5 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, and he's gonna murder it. We were thinking 33.
Yeah, no, I'd take that shit all day long.
Yeah.
Might want to jump on that now before them fucking odds change before the season starts.
So this
I just don't understand the MVP disrespect, on that too. It's like he was clearly second last year. You could have made a case for him being first.
Yeah.
And them having him around 22 to 25, depending on which sports book you look at, is just odd to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. Definitely. And if it stays at 22.5, sign me up to put a couple zeros on the end of that number, because I think that's almost a guaranteed lock.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, boys. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us. Obviously, we got a game coming up on Thursday. I believe the intent was for us to, I think we're just going to end up doing a post-game coverage next Monday, because I unfortunately have to attend a military ceremony on Friday evening that I'm not looking forward to, because I got to put on a dress uniform that I normally don't have to wear. So
good old Class A's.
Yeah. It's actually, I actually get to wear a mesh dress now that I'm moving up into the next tier. So
wow, well, congratulations.
It'll be all fancy pantsy shit. So
right.
But yeah, I'll be doing that on Friday night. So I think we'll defer that show. We'll talk about, obviously we'll be texting each other Thursday evening, I'm sure, discussing what it is we're seeing. And then we'll just kind of follow up with some post-game coverage. With that being said, I guess we'll go ahead and close it out. So Birds the Word is brought to you by Old City Sports Network. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, like, share, subscribe to Birds the Word and Old City Sports. Check out some of the other shows we got going on. Fan Lot is a pretty good show if you're into the Phillies. Check that out. The Flyers Alley is getting ready to kick off here as hockey season quickly approaches, and there's some other great shows out there on the network that everybody should check out. If you're looking to follow any of us on Twitter, our handles are each at the left-hand corner of our screen there, and if
Vanna White over here somewhere,
and also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Birds of Word 57 and at Old Sport, spelled OLDE _sport. That being said, I guess we'll go ahead and close it out, boys. Talk to y'all next week, and go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.